Hello and welcome to a Talmud Israeli production. Today we'll review the highlights of this week's course of Daf Yomi study, Masechet BavaMetzia, pages 88 through 94. Pechet 88. Mipnei ma charvu chanuyot shel Beit Hino. Why were the marketplaces of the place of Hino destroyed? Shalosh neim lefnei Yerushalayim, 3 years before Jerusalem. Meaning the temple was destroyed in the year 70, and the marketplaces of Beit Hino, which were adjacent to Jerusalem, were destroyed a few years earlier. Because the people in the marketplace, they insisted upon following Torah law and only Torah law, but not rabbinic law. Shayu Omrim, because they would say, Aser Taser, you have to tithe your produce. V'achalta, and the Torah says you shall eat it, meaning, V'lo mocher, only if you eat your own produce, but not if you sell your own produce. Tavat zarecha, the fruit of your field, V'lo lokeach, and not the buyer. So in this interpretation, the buyer and the seller of produce need not take tithes. Only if you are the grower and the consumer together must you give the maaser. But under rabbinic law, regardless of whether you're the buyer or the seller or whomever you are, you're going to have to take maasrot. Peitet 89. Sheva shekibshu v'sheva shechilku. When Bnei Israel entered the land of Israel, there were 14 years of uncertainty. 7 years of warfare that Yoshua led the people against the Canaanites, and 7 years of disposition of the territory, where the tribal allotments were given out. During this time, they were obligated to the mitzvah of challah, so if one made a dough, you had to separate a portion out for the Kohen. But however, they were not yet obligated to take tithes from the produce. Sadi, 90. When it comes to the prohibition in the Torah, lo tachsom shor bedisho, you shall not muzzle an ox while it plows the field, while it threshes the grain. The question is, why must the ox not be muzzled, and why must it be allowed to eat food during the process of the threshing of the grain? Is it because mishum de malila, the food is good for the animal, nutrition? Or is it because of the psychological torture that the animal is busy dealing with produce, with food, edibles, and yet is prevented by way of the muzzle from enjoying that food? So is it a question of nutrition or a question of psychological torture? The Gemara offers proofs in various directions and comes to the conclusion that the issue is nutrition. Sadi Aleph, 91. Haya ose biyadav. What if a worker was working with his hands out in the field, avalo baraglav, but was not using his feet? Baraglav, avalo biyadav, with his feet but not his hands. Afilu b'ktefo, even if he's just using his shoulders. Harei ze ochel. So regardless of what part of your body you are using in your agricultural labors, you're allowed to consume from the produce of the field. That's your entitlement as a worker according to the Torah. Saribet, 92. Ochel poel kishot afilu bedinar. The worker who is allowed by Torah law to eat while he's on the job in the field is allowed to eat even expensive produce, even if a cucumber costs a dinar, which is an absurdity. It's probably not going to cost anywhere near that, but if it did, even still, the worker is allowed to eat it. Kotevet, a date, afilu bedinar, even if it costs a dinar, the worker is allowed to eat it. Rabbi Elazar Chisma Omer, Rabbi Elazar says, the worker should not eat more than the value of his labor, meaning whatever his salary is, that is the cutoff point, the threshold beyond which he cannot eat any produce. So if he's getting $10 for the day, he can eat $9.99 worth of produce, but he can't eat more than that. Interestingly, the rabbi's name is Elazar Chisma, so lo tachsom, he's muzzling the worker to a certain extent. Now, the sages, however, say that the worker is allowed to eat as much as he wants, even beyond what his official salary is. But we teach the worker, don't be a glutton. Don't start stuffing your face with food all day long, because if the employers know that this employee is going to cost them a lot of money because he eats out in the field, then what's going to happen? So he's going to close the door to his in front of him for any possibility of work, of employment. All the employers are going to know, don't hire that guy. He's too expensive an employee because he eats too much. Tzadi Gimel, 93. Shomer Peirot. the watchman who is watching the fruit of the field, ochlin mehilchot medina, is allowed to eat from that produce, from the fruit, by popular convention, by the laws of the land. Avalo min haTorah, but not because of Torah law. Torah law allows agricultural laborers who are working, threshing the field, working on the produce to eat. But someone who's just a security guard, Torah law not allowed to eat. But popular convention, law of the land, they allowed it. Makes sense. Why should the guy who's standing 2 feet away from the food not be allowed to consume a little bit of the food? Tzadi Daled, 94. Kol hamatne al mashikatuv ba'Torah tena'o batel. If you make a stipulation in your arrangements with a counterparty, in a manner which goes against the laws of the Torah, your stipulation is null and void. You can't have workarounds against Torah law. You have to abide by them. However, the Mishnah in this daf says otherwise, at least with regard to certain the laws of the Shomrim, of the custodians, of the Shomer Chinam, the Shomer Sachar, the Socher, the Shoel. How could that be? And the Gemara gives an answer. The Mishnah follows the viewpoint of Rabbi Yehuda, who said, "Bedavar shebamomon," when it comes to financial laws, tenauakayim, you are allowed to make stipulations which are counter to the details of Torah law, and if you make such a stipulation, it's valid, and the various parties have to adhere to that stipulation. Everyone have a great week.